Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Booklore podcast, where we explore the power of literature and celebrate diverse voices in North Carolina by spotlighting local writers. I suggest you cozy up, grab a matcha or any drink of your choice, and tune in. I'll be your host, Christina. Today, we have the privilege of inviting Dorothy H. Price onto this episode. Dorothy is the Charlotte-based award-winning author of kidlit books, including her debut picture book, Nana's Favorite Things, and the chapter book series, Jayles' Big City Life. Additionally, she was a former high school English educator and has published short stories for Teaching Tolerance's Teaching Hard History series, educating Southern history to young readers. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dorothy.
Thank you for having me.
So to start off, go ahead and please introduce yourself in your own words. You can mention any hobbies, family, anything you'd like.
Great. Well, as you mentioned, I'm Dorothy H. Price. I am an author of children's picture and chapter books on the way to middle grade. And also, I have shifted gears and taken things up a little bit to adult nonfiction. So that's in the works, but definitely have been writing in the children's space for close to 15 years. I was actually just talking to someone about that today. It doesn't seem that long, but I did get my start in children's books, and I really loved children's books when I thought about it. A while ago, I really love picture books. I love having something to look at as I'm turning the pages. And so for me, it kind of was a natural evolution. I started writing at 11. So I started with poems, songs, raps. I just wrote everything. I had a journal. My sister gave me a journal for my birthday when I was 11. And it was one of the best things that she could have done because it just unlocked all of the emotions and all of the desires that I had at that time, and I kept that going forward. So no matter where I am, I have a journal, have my journal right here within reach. Like a paper and pen is with me at all times. So that's kind of the backstory on how I got to writing, and I'm excited about where things are headed and some of the things that I'm doing now. So that's writing in a nutshell.
That's amazing. It's actually so cool because that's how I started with my own journal that I got as a kid. So it's so cool to hear about that. Our next question, you actually touched on it a lot already, was would you be able to tell us about your background and relationship with reading and writing growing up? Just essentially your journey towards becoming first an English teacher and ultimately a published author today. And that can also include what people, authors, and books have inspired you.
Absolutely. So I don't know for sure when I started writing at 11 that I didn't know that it was going to take me where I am now. I went on a little bit of a journey. So writing, was initiated back when I was 11, and I went to college, so I majored in journalism. So the writing was always there. I thought I wanted to be a sportscaster. Definitely did not do that. Sports was really important to me. I loved basketball. It was during the Jordan heyday, so I loved the Bulls, and I thought that that was going to be my career. So I did graduate, and I did go into journalism for a few years, more on the TV production side. And then I really realized quickly that, it production is a very demanding career. Um, and it's something that I just knew I wouldn't be able to do long term. So, I ended up having a family, I got married, I had my daughter, and I quickly realized that I needed to do something that was going to be a little bit more family friendly. And so I took a detour, went into nonprofit, and then I ended up going into teaching. So, my background in journalism and my courses from college allowed me to do the lateral entry program. That's actually when I got into North Carolina. And so I, of course, went to what I naturally loved, which was writing. And so the progression to become an English teacher was just really a natural thing. I loved teaching. I loved my students, the stories that we read, having that dialogue. And it's been some time since I've taught. So it's been over 10 years since I've been in the classroom, but I just remember enjoying introducing my students to language and to authors and to different stories and allowing them to figure out, how they related to those different works. And so that's kind of how, I entered the education space. And then again, I took a detour. So I do still work not in education anymore, but I still work a 9 to 5, but I managed to do the writing on the side, and I'm still doing that today. And so that's really what keeps me grounded, knowing that, the writing is really where my passion lies.
Mhm. Amazing. So, how does your past in education affect your process and goals in writing today with your books?
The my past with education, did you say?
Yeah. And also your journalism as well.
Yeah, so and I know you had talked about some of my favorite authors. So I feel like everything aligned in different ways. It wasn't like a straight path, but the journalism let kept me in the writing space. And then the education opened up the kind of the youth vision for, that's really where I focused on my writing. Even though, high school they didn't necessarily read picture books,
Mhm.
but it just being around that age group really took me back to, what was I thinking about when I was a teenager, when I was in high school? What were those things that I enjoyed? So it was kind of like all of those things together just took me into a different focus to figure out where did I want to be. And so, for me, some of my favorite authors, I guess now and when I started, Jacqueline Woodson, Jason Reynolds, those are some names that we hear today. But there's so many, and I don't want to even try to start naming because there's so many, and I don't want to,
Mhm.
miss anyone. But there were just a lot of influences, even in my writing groups. There's a lot of people that I started writing with, and now honestly, all of us are published. So I got a lot of inspiration from the people that I wrote with, and we would go to critique groups and we would critique each other's manuscripts, and so just seeing the progression of those folks that I started out with to see where they are today. Some of them have multiple books published, in more the picture book and middle grade genres, but so I'd say it's just been a combination of just collaborating with different people, studying a lot of the great authors and writers that came before me and those that are out today. Um, I'm reading a lot of nonfiction right now, adult nonfiction, because that's kind of where I've moved and progressed to this summer. And so I've read so many autobiographies and memoirs. Nicole Chung, oh my goodness, I read both of hers that she has a new one that just came out this year. Love, love, love that book. And there's so many good ones. And now I'm going backwards a little bit. I'm reading Will Smith's memoir, which I heard was really good, and I missed it when it came out a few years ago. So I'm like churning books. Once I finish, starting a new one, but also weaving in some picture books because I still love reading those too.
Yeah, totally understood. So next we're going to touch on your first picture book that you actually published, which was Nana's Favorite Things, which talks about how a young girl named Sasha adapts and learns with her Nana in the face of a diabetes diagnosis. So amongst all your past works, you've been writing since you were 11. So what was your inspiration for this book, and how did you decide to commit to publishing it as your debut in particular?
Yeah, so Nana's favorite thing, it was definitely a passion project. So Sasha is actually my daughter, and Nana is my mom. And my mom was diagnosed with diabetes when she was 60. And, that was a journey for her and for us. And, she was very close to my daughter. I have a son now too, but when, that story kind of came to me, I don't even know if my son was born, but, it was just that grandmother, granddaughter relationship. And my mom loved to bake pumpkin bread, and she bakes zucchini bread. So I try to figure out, well, if we're trying to do something on the healthier side, the zucchini bread would work a little bit better. And so, my mom and my daughter would bake together in the kitchen. And so that story just came out of that relationship. And my mom was very energetic and active, and she rode bikes and she played basketball. She did all of those things. And it was to encourage, anyone who might be diagnosed with diabetes, that you can actually turn that around. She still does have diabetes, but she never had it progress to where she needed insulin. So she's just taking a pill for over almost 20 years now. She's been able to manage her diabetes without having to be on insulin. So I just wanted that to be a story of encouragement, and also to show that bond and that relationship between a grandmother and their granddaughter. And 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 so that's really where that whole concept came from. And I was really, thrilled that Eifert Publishing was able to see that story, love it, and then want to actually publish it.
Amazing. That's such a great message for
Yeah.
leaders and just families, like around the world in general.
Yeah.
So could you expand on why you ventured into children's literature and the importance of diversity and representation in this genre, especially given all the mainstream discourse over early education these days?
Yeah. So I think I feel like I gravitated to children's books because I think I kind of went back to my love. Like Corduroy was my favorite picture book growing up. And I just, like I was saying before, I just loved watching and looking at the pictures. Like every page you turn, there was words and then there was art, words, art. I'm not an artist, but I have a lot of respect for artists and illustrators, because it's really it's a talent to be able to look at words, look at text, and in your mind, figure out how do you want to convey that story with those different images. So I think it was picture books that really got me into that focus of, deciding what I wanted to actually write. And then as I, learned more about the process and started writing, I kind of just went up the scale and then started reading middle grade. And I was around people in my critique group who wrote middle grade. And so it just kind of was a natural progression. I knew that I wanted to write in every genre. I knew, just because that's how my creativity works. I get ideas constantly. So I have an app that I actually keep notes in, and I have different sections for picture book, middle grade, young adult, adult. And so it's kind of like I want to eventually write the whole spectrum. And when we talk about what's going on today in diversity and the need for diversity, it's we're still a long way. We've come a long way from where we were when I started writing, but especially with the number of diverse authors that are out now, but we still have a long way to go. I feel like when I hear people saying, I want my children to see stories that with characters and main characters that reflect them, it's an important thing because it's part of identity. When you don't see yourself, it's hard to imagine what is possible. And that doesn't just go for writing. I mean, it goes for all elements of our world. When you're in the world and you see people who look like you, it allows you to know that whatever they're doing is possible. I can do that if they can do it. So, it's a huge importance that we have stories that tell all people's stories. It's variety. We want to be able to share what it is like to be a particular a person of color, or you know just whatever that difference might be. Awareness and knowledge and education is how you learn. So for me, I'm still learning. Like, I'm reading all types of books. I'm trying to educate myself about things that I might not be 100% aware of, because that's just who I am. And I know everyone is not the same, but I don't have that fear. I'm trying to get better and not carrying that fear about if I know something or if I'm educated about something, that's a bad thing, because I don't think that it is.
Yeah, 100% keep on saying that. Everything you said is so resonating. Um, so we're going to move on to talking about your first chapter book series, Jalen's Big City Life, which was published last year, with the most recent batch having just come out, actually. It
Yeah.
chronicles the adventures of 7-year-old Jalen Corey Pierce, aka JC, as he transitions from a small town life to a new urban environment alongside his family and best friends. Could you tell us about your publication story here and which aspect of the story of this series was most fun or enjoyable for you?
Absolutely. So this actually was really fun. I had always, again, going up that spectrum, wanted to do chapter books, and the opportunity came. So my agent at the time, I had submitted a picture book story to her, and it was centered around a daughter and her father, and it took place in the city. It kind of mirrored my upbringing. So I'm from New Jersey, but my dad and a lot of family members lived in New York City. So I spent a lot of time in New York. And the editor that we sent it to liked the story, but said it was not, something that they thought they could publish at that time. However, they were starting this new chapter book series, and they wanted a concept that kind of involved the city, um, a boy who was a person of color, and they wanted it to kind of showcase what it would look like moving from a small town to a big city. And so when it was presented to me, I was kind of bummed because they didn't want my original story. But when they gave me this other opportunity, I was like, that sounds like something I can write. I have some history with that. And so it kind of evolved with me just coming up with a ton of ideas and concepts. And I sent that to the editor, and she looked it over and kind of, put checks next to the ones that she thought would work. And once we narrowed it down to 4, it was just kind of me going to work and crafting the story. I didn't have hardly anything to go on other than a black boy, city, and family. That was kind of it. So I kind of took all of those things and ran with it. And for me, I kind of incorporated my memories growing of visiting my grandmother and my aunt and my cousin in Harlem, in their apartment building. It's a big apartment building. It was probably like 20 something floors, and we would go there pretty much every weekend. We would have dinner over there, and so all of those memories just came back. And so, writing those different stories, I remember going to the laundry room and helping my aunt and my cousin with the laundry. And then, there was a park that was across the street. So this new series that just came out this August, there's a one of the books centers around going to the park. There's a new neighbor, and they need to help the neighbor move in. And then they end up getting to have some toys that they can take with them to the park. So it was just fun to write that. It was fun for me to go back in time and think about some of those experiences. And I'd say, the one of the books that talks about baking, that was kind of like my way to flip it with Nana's Favorite Things, where it was the grandmother and the granddaughter, and now I could bring it kind of full circle with the grandfather and JC, and where they're baking together. So it was kind of just a full circle where I could show both of those different concepts in this one being in the chapter book series.
Yeah, that sounds so special. And it really resonated with me as well because I have a similar experience with my own grandparents in a city. So it was
Okay.
so fun reading and getting to see that as a universal experience as any young child could experience. So
Absolutely.
rounding off with our last few questions, it's crazy how time has already passed by so fast, but
Yes.
What does your work mean to you? So, what common goal or theme amongst all your works do you hope readers take away from the most?
I would say for me, I've always been a dreamer. And so this is kind of part of my mission statement, but I want kids to be able to dream the biggest dreams that they have. I don't feel like any dream is too big. I try to instill that in my children. Make the biggest, craziest, most outlandishly big dream that you could possibly think of, and that's not even big enough. So I try not to limit what is possible, because I believe anything is possible if you put in the hard work, if you stay determined, and if you don't quit. That's been true for me. So I want children who read my books, and just people who know me in general, like I'm like this with friends. Like I'm like that big cheerleader. Like I like to hear good stories. I like to hear good news. I like to pump people up, because I feel like if you can dream your wildest dream and just keep working at it, I believe it will happen. It will come true. So that's a big thing for me. Is just believe in yourself, have the wildest, biggest dreams that you could possibly think of, and then have it come true. Do the work, and it may not happen overnight. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years almost, and I'm still not where I plan to be. So I still set dreams and goals for myself, and I can look back and see all of the ones that I've been able to succeed at so far.
Mhm. Amazing. Lastly, do you have any advice for young writers, especially beginning kidlit authors or even beyond today?
I would say just right. Just right. No matter what it is, don't worry about it being perfect. That's one of the things. I call myself a recovering perfectionist, because most writers think that your writing has to be perfect. Like as soon as you write a story, it has to be perfect. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. Writers write. That's what we do. And we edit later. That's what the beauty of editing is. And I'll tell you, editors are amazing. Like editors, they should be paid way more than they are, because that's what they are there to do. So when you get to that point where you are working with editors, or people are editing your work, let them. You write. Focus on the writing. Write whatever you want, whatever is on your heart, whatever is on your mind. Just write it, and worry about all of that other stuff after the fact. But just write.
That's such great advice. So that was our last question, but please feel free to use this remaining time to shout out anything from your socials, upcoming news, releases. You've talked about how you're still climbing that spectrum. Uh, just really anything under the sun.
Well, first, I'd like to just thank you. I think this is so great. I'm proud of you, and I can't wait to see where you're headed. And I want you to stay in touch so I can say I know you, because I see there is a huge, bright future in the works for you. Other than that, I would just say, so I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at DHP Writes. That's probably where you'll find me the most. I was on Twitter a lot, but I these days, Twitter X, I'm just, yeah. I would say Instagram. I did just recently start a TikTok page also at DHP Writes. Very new, very green. So I'm still getting there. But I love to interact with folks on social. So I would definitely say, if you'd like to meet me there, that is great. But for me, I'm working on my first, I call it a memoir slash wellness adult nonfiction. I just sent it to an editor on Monday, and it's the proposal, and so it's a little bit different than children's. You have to write a proposal to see if there's even interest, which is a big deal, because I'm not that known. So to do a memoir is, it's it's a big push. However, I dream big. So, I look forward to seeing what the feedback is and seeing what is next with that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the kind words. It means truly so much. And I wish you the best of luck with all your future works. It's so exciting, and I can't wait to see more news about it. But yeah, that unfortunately brings our time to a close. But once again, thank you everyone so much for tuning in and for listening in on our conversation. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.